G'day, Tragic here, and welcome to my new mod. This is a utility mod for modders to edit and help them create their own mods. It's my tag tool and object editing mod, and it's a version 2 of a mod that already exists on the workshop. So the way to use this mod is you just go to objects, or actually go to the actual mod in your workshop list and go to search and just drag it out. Okay, that's all you need to do. And there's no includes or anything on this, so this will not interfere with your modding. You can just delete it when you're finished. And basically this is the mod. So you might recognize it. It's functionally identical to the old mod with a few improvements and a bug fix and some stuff like that. So we'll just quickly go through how the mod works. For starters, you've got spawn bags at the top. If you click this, say 3 times, 1, 2, 3, it'll spawn 3 bags. Okay, click it once, it'll spawn 1 bag. If you right click it, it'll spawn you 20 bags. And that's just a shortcut because you need bags for this mod. Similarly, we have spawn note cards. If you click it once, it'll spawn a note card. Click it twice, it'll spawn 2, whatever, as many times as you want to click it. And if you right click it, it'll spawn 6. Now the reason it spawns so many is because this is the important button, spawn platforms. You press this button and it will spawn these platforms around the mod. And these platforms are how the mod functions. So what this mod does is that it edits your objects, it edits the tags, name fields, whatever you want to do, even the properties, and it gets that data from these platforms. So it won't function without the platform spawned. You can right click to delete them, but also it'll delete any it finds. So even if it's up in the air like that and you click spawn, it'll still spawn the platforms. Okay. So once you've got it where you want it for your editing, just spawn the platforms and you're ready to go. Now I've got some little test objects here. The way the mod works is that any object on the mod will be edited. Okay. But any bag or any container, so any bag or any deck, which are both containers as far as TTS is concerned, it'll edit everything in the bag. So this bag, right, has a bunch of has all these same objects inside it. This deck has all the, it's a deck of cards, and I'll put one of the decks in here. So when you run the edit, it won't edit the deck, the physical deck itself, and it won't edit the bag itself, right? It'll only edit the contents. To edit bags and edit decks as a whole and not their contents, just place them in a bag. For example, at the moment, this deck is in the bag, which means the deck in the bag is edited, not the contents inside the deck. Does that make sense? So it only goes one level deep, right? So anything on the tool will get edited. If you want to edit, 500 things at once, stick them all in a bag, okay? And that's pretty much how it works. Now I'll just go through all the functionality of the mod step by step, and there'll be sort of sections at the bottom of the video so you can jump around. First thing we'll talk about is the cards. The way the mod works is that when you edit something, it looks at these cards and looks at the data you enter in the card and then uses that data, extracts it, and then applies it to the objects. And this is quite handy for a number of reasons. One, it allows you, for me, it's a visual way I can edit things without going into scripting because I can do it in the mod, but also it allows you to create templates. So if I spawn a bag, right, and I made a template, say I'm making a card game and I call it card systems or something. I could set up these cards for the name, the description, GMNOTES, tags, the toggles, even the properties like scale and whether they're affected by the fog of war or anything editable by this mod. And you can set up in these note cards and then you can put them in there and save them for later. And that way, say, new expansion comes out, I don't have to edit it all and go through all the things. I can just load up this bag, pull out all the note cards I want, click the button, and they're all ready to use in your mod. And that's the good thing about this card system. Anyway, we'll go through them one by one. We'll start with name and description fields. If you just mouse over these things, it tells you what they do. The top one is name and descriptions. Second one's GMNOTES. The third one is a search and replace. I'll talk about that later. This one here in the top right is add remove tags. This one is copy toggles. And this one is edit properties. So we're going to do name first. So basically all you need to do is type in new name or whatever you want to type into the name field here. And the description we'll put in description. I use a bucket spring keyboard and it's super loud. So I bought like a quiet, membrane keyboard, but it's a different size and I can't type fast on it without putting lots of errors. Okay, whatever. The point is you have a card. Whatever's in the name field is going to be used to edit the name of the object. Whatever's in the description field is going to be used to edit the description of the object. So for example, if I click name, it is now green. That means it's going to edit that thing. And you can actually have these turned off. Like say I had a card, so I spawn another card. This one here edits the GM notes, right? So it doesn't matter what's in the name. I'll put a GM note. This is a GM note. So even though there's a card there, because this is not green, it won't edit that value, right? Which is quite handy. But the mod will, if something's set to green and the card's not there, it'll just set it to off, okay? Anyway, the point is we're going to be editing our name only, and we'll also edit the description. And all I need to do is click the process all note cards and bam, it's edited them. They sort of jump up in the air. And you can see now they all have the name and description that was written, okay? And this includes the cards in the deck. I'll just shuffle that, grab this card, just make sure the toggle's on. And you can see it's got name and description. That's been edited as well, everything in the deck. And everything, so this is the deck here has been edited, new name and new description. But if I look at the card itself, it's still got its original name. But all the other objects in there have also been edited, right? And that's basically how it all functions. What I might do is I'll just get rid of all those things, get a new copy out. The description field will always replace, okay? So it doesn't matter what you do in the description field, it'll always replace the existing description. And that's the same with the GM note. Note that it's a little confusing, but the GM note is written into the description of the notepad, and that's why you can see it. But the name is ignored. So, you type in the same name here as in here, and that way they're grouped and you can stick them in your source bag or whatever. But if you notice around the name, replace is highlighted, and then there's P for prefix and S for suffix. So if I change this to prefix, and I'll just put this as like that. And now I do it. I'll click GMNOTES as well, since the GMNOTES is in. And I go process all cards, your blammo. Let me just switch to, so I can see the GMNOTES. You'll see now, if you look at that tooltip, that it's added the new name data here, which was just, dash equals equals, to the prefix of the existing data, okay? So this was called ghosted, had a bad spell. This one's called the black man. It's put at the beginning, okay? And then it's also edited the GM note and the description because we have GM note and description ticked. So if I turn them off and I now go suffix, and I'll just do the opposite. I'll go space equals equals dash dash, and now I edit. You can see that it's added the name that we had in the name field to the suffix of the existing name data of the object. And again, this works for all objects inside the card, okay? You can see down here, we've got let me just turn the tooltip on. You can see that it's got the suffix and stuff. So to recap for names, you have the name field you put in here, the description field you put in here. Inside the description field, you can put in a GM note, and then you just click which ones you want to happen, and whether you want the name to replace the existing name or be added as a suffix or a prefix. That's it. That's how it all works. But there is something slightly more complicated that it does do. And that is, if you have a card over here, this is called the edit existing names and description. This will do a search and replace. So let me just restart this. So the way this works is you have your note card. If you have a card in this location, right, it'll search and replace via the name or description. So take this guy here. He's called the Black Man, but say I wanted to call him the Black Hatted Man, okay? Now, I want to edit that, but not edit everything. So I could come in here and I could change this to black space. I'll put a space on either side. It makes it a bit more, so it's definitely going to find space, black space in the name field of these objects. And then in here, I'm going to change this to space, black dash hatted space. So what it's going to do, it's going to, if there's a card here, it's going to search for whatever you've written here and replace it with whatever you've written here. So if I now click this, what's going to happen is it's going to turn off GMNOTES. We're not going to do the description. And we just hit process, boom. And now we come up here and you can see that it's searched for that string key black and changed it to black hatted. And this is so you can do big changes and you can do it to all sorts of stuff. So say this, and remember it works inside bag. So if I get the Black Hatted Man from the bag, you can see he is now also called the Black Hatted Man. But say this maniac guy, I had a whole bunch of descriptive stuff in here, just a huge description. And in the middle of the description, I had edit this bit. It works the same way. So you do the bit you're searching for here, right? And then in the search and replace bit, we'll put in what we're going to replace it with. And we'll just replace it with something very, very obvious. And then you just go your blammo. And you can see, oh, I have to have description ticked. That's why it didn't work. Boom. And you can see that it has replaced the text it's found. So that is how name works, basically. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other ones. These are a bit easier. This one is for copying toggles, okay? So we'll spawn another card, and I'll just put it here. And it doesn't matter what's written in the description or in the name here. It'll actually just read the toggles itself. So I want to have draggable, selectable. I don't want snap. I don't want grid. I do want auto raise. I don't want sticky, and I don't want tooltips. I just turn on toggles and then I go process. Well, let's just have a look here. Let me just get all these. If I go to toggles, we'll turn on snap, sticky, hands, you know, whatever. So they're all the toggles that all these objects now have, right? So I hit process, and now you can see that the toggles are identical to the toggles we set on the note card. So that's how the toggles work. You just place the card here, you set the toggles as you like, and then it'll copy them over. And remember, it does it for everything in bags and decks. Also, it doesn't use the name or the description field at all for this particular card, right? So what I usually do is I just call it toggles, and I name the object type that I'm doing for my mod. Because like I said, what I like to do is I make a bag that has all the settings for that object and I save it. And that way I can always reproduce really quickly the settings. This one is probably one of the most complicated ones. This is the properties one. So the way properties work is there's a type of data. If you're a modder, you know this. And remember, this is for modders. There's this thing called get data, which allows you to retrieve all the data that the game uses to create all these objects inside the engine. And this properties value allows you to edit that data directly. Now, you need to know what that data is, right, as a modder to use this card, Okay, so let me just spawn a card. And I've given you a little tool to help. So if you right click on an object, as you probably know, you can get the GUID. If you place the GUID into the description of the tool itself and then right click the process button, it'll actually print out into the chat the get data for that object. And that's a way you can quickly see how everything's going to work. Okay. And the way it works is, see all these things here, like nickname, GMNOTES, color diffuse, anything you want, mesh URLs, whatever you want to edit. If you add that keyword into here, followed by a colon and then the data, it'll edit it. Okay. And I've actually even put 2 aliases as well. There's 2 aliases. One is instead of doing scale X, scale Y, and scale Z, you can just use scale. And the other one I've done is tint. Instead of doing color diffuse and doing the calculation to RGBA in a 0 to 1 value, you can just use a hex color code. So I'll show you how that works. So basically, if I just load up my tool, if you click on something, you can get this transform tool, okay? And it's got the scale 111. So say I'm doing my modding and I go, you know what? I really wish all my tokens were this size. Instead of doing it to every single token, I could put 10,000 tokens inside a bag. I just click this tool. I just copy the scale that I had it set to by clicking that button. I go to my notepad. I type scale, colon, and then paste. Right? So I've written scale, and then all I need to do is go edit properties, process, and bam, everything scales up. Okay? And again, this works for everything. Okay? So say I'll do it in a bag. Okay? So this is what they look like in the bag. I'll just put 2 out as well. So if I just load up a color hex wheel, say green here, there's a green. I'll do green. I can make it any color I want. Let's do green. That's a nice one. If I just copy that hex color and I type into here on a new line, tint, colon, and paste it in. When you're doing hex colors, you can have the hash or not. It'll ignore the hash if it's there. Okay. So I've written scale, colon, whatever, and I've written tint, colon, whatever. And now I process. Boom, it's scaled it and it's adjusted the tint. Okay. And remember, even if you have the hash, so if I just do this again, but this time I include the hash, because it depends how you're copying it. Sometimes the application gives you the hash or not. You can see it's now tinting it anyway. Okay. But you can use diffuse color or whatever you want to do and do it manually. This is just a little alias I've done to make it easier for me. And of course, it does everything in the bags as well. In addition, you can do basically anything, okay? Any kind of edit that you want. So for example, let's just grab the URL from this object here, okay? There's an object here. We're just going to grab that URL. We've done the printout, so we know that the URL for these objects, which are OBJ files, is mesh URL, right? So you can see it right there, mesh URL, and then the file, right? So if I right-click this, and remember, it's got to be exact, so it's case sensitive, okay? So if I go mesh URL colon, and then I paste in the new URL. So it looks like that. And then I go process, bam. Oops, as an error. And you know why that errored? Because I did the mesh URL. What I wanted to do was diffuse URL. So I tried to put a texture where there should be a mesh URL. So that was just a mistake because I'm trying to say this aloud. So let's do that again. So I'm going to turn that into, remember it's written there, it is diffuse, D-I-F-F-U-S-E, URL. And now I do the properties. Let's just drag out 2 so you can see it. Blam, and you can see it's changed the scale, it's changed the tint, it's changed the diffuse. And there's lots of different things you can do this for. Like, for example, say I have a custom tile. Okay, I'll just put in the top image like that, make it rounded, go import, and I import it like that. So this thickness is set to 100. It's actually quite thick. I don't like that. So what I'm going to do, let's get rid of that. We don't need that. We'll keep the tint, and I'm going to make thickness 0.3. Okay, I just happen to know that thickness is a value. Okay, and if I go bam, you can see it's tinted it. It's changed the thickness, and it's done everything it's required. And because it's smart enough to know that if there's an object there and the value isn't there, for example, this is a custom tile, but this object here, this one here is a custom OBJ file, a mesh data file. They do not have the value. They do not have the data value thickness. Doesn't matter. You can still go proceed and it will just ignore anything it doesn't find. Okay. And that is how the properties work. It's more complicated. It's more for more advanced modding, but that's that. Finally, we have, well, not finally, but almost finally, we have the tags. Okay. Basically, just before I do the tags, actually, I'll just talk about one more little feature. When you import this into your mod, it'll also import, if you go to game keys, a bunch of tooltips. It'll to do with tagging. Okay, so you can set these to any keyboard binding you want. I like to use the number pad because they're not used by TTS itself. So basically, you've got print tags, clear tags, turn on or off tooltips, add tags, remove tags, replace tags. Okay, so for example, I'm going to just bring this guy out and I'm going to print the tags. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner in the chat window, it's printed out. This guy, the black man, has the tag monster type mask. And this one over here has the tag ID monsters, you know, border is stationary or whatever. Okay. And that's just to printing out the tags. But, you know, say I don't want the tags, I can clear the tags. And now if I print, there's nothing there. Okay. So they're very self-explanatory. But I just wanted to talk about them because it'll make talking about tags easier because I'll be able to print them out. You'll know how I'm doing it. Anyway, whatever. The point is, to edit tags, you simply write the tag into the description field. You can put anything you want in the name field. It doesn't matter. Like before, I usually just go tags, object name, just so you know I know what this card is for later on. And you just have to write add and the colon followed by the tag name, and it can be camel case. It doesn't matter what you call it. So I'm going to call this is a tag. I'm also going to add another tag. So I've got add colon, this is a tag, add colon, another tag. Now, there's 3 buttons here, okay? Basically, they work like this. If you have replace tag ticked, whatever is written with the add value, and I'll tell you why in a sec, why you have add, well, I'll tell you now. Basically, this can also remove tags. So say this guy here, this vampire, if I print him out, he has ID underscore monsters. This guy doesn't have ID underscore monsters. This guy has ID underscore monsters. I want to get rid of ID underscore monsters. I just type remove colon ID underscore monsters. So when it processes this object, anything that has add colon and then whatever, it'll add tags. Anything that has remove colon, it'll try and remove those tags if they're found. And if you want to, like, say I want to comment something out, it doesn't matter what you put there. I'll just put 2 dashes. Now that the start of the of the line isn't add colon, it'll just ignore that another tag thing. Okay, so whatever. If you have replace tags, it'll delete every tag it finds and then just add whatever is written in add. So if I have replace tags clicked, I've got tags clicked, I go process, I now print the tags for vampires. It's got another tag and this is a tag, they're the new tags, but black man is exactly the same. They're all the same. Everything in here is the same. Everything in the card deck would be the same if I had a card deck. In fact, why don't I just get a card deck out for next time? Okay. If I have clear all tags, right, it'll just clear them. It'll just delete all the tags. Okay. So if I click that, now everyone has no tags. Okay. No tags. Otherwise, if either of those buttons are off, it'll follow the instructions on the card. So when I process, this is going to add those two tags and try and remove the ID monsters tag. Okay. So this one here, which has these two, the vampire and the ghost, both have ID monsters, as you can see in the bottom left there. So I hit process, blam. I now print them out. You can see that it's got another tag. It's got this as a tag. It's got the border tag that it had before, but it no longer has the ID monster tag. Same with this one, same with this one. And you can see that it's added the tags to this card, which has a whole bunch of its own tags, right? And that is how the tag function works, okay? You just have whatever's written in here as add or remove. It'll add or remove unless you have replace tags, in which case it'll just delete everything and only add whatever's on add, or clear tags will just clear everything, okay? And for just going back to the hotkeys now, this also works for the hotkeys themselves. So if I go into my options, game keys, you've got add, remove, replace, and clear. So this guy here, he has ID and monster stationery. Okay, so if I do the add, okay, you can see that he's added tags and it's getting it from this tag object. He's added another tags and it's added, this is a tag, but notice it didn't remove the ID monsters. And that is because in the game keys, the remove tag is a separate button, okay? So if I just now go blam, you can see at the bottom, instead of being 4 tags, it's now 3 tags, and it's got it's removed the ID monsters, okay? And then, of course, you have remove all tags, which just clears them, and the hotkey for printing and the hotkey for adding. And that's basically how the tag function works. And that's basically how this mod functions. That's it, for editing existing objects. So a real world example in my case, right, is I have all these monsters. This is just a selection of them, okay? All these monsters, right, they're all different monsters. They all have different, well, this one's got a different, this one's got a yellow border and this one doesn't. These are black borders. But they're all moons. So I need to add the tag monster dimension moon. So I want to add that to every single one of these. I also want to make sure every single one of these has the ID monsters tag. So add ID underscore monsters. I also need, say, my trash code, trash discard object, or whatever tags you've got in your mod, okay? So I'm saying add all those things to every single one of these mods, but I don't want to change what they are. See, this one, for example, has got MD border stationery, but this one here has mask type, and this one has MD borders normal. So what I might want to do is I just want to make sure that they've all got add M border normal, right? So I'll just add that one to the black mask guy. And then I'll just add them to all the existing ones. And now they've all got the dimension moon tag. They've all got the right border tags. They've all got the trash code tag. And I'm ready to insert these tokens into my mod, and it will just fit in with all my scripting that looks for these tags. And that's the main point of this mod. What I mainly use this mod for is just the tags and the hotkeys. In fact, so much so, I might make a similar version of this mod, which is just a single platform with the tag tees, but I just put it all in one thing. And that's the mod. I hope that's clear. I know that was a kind of long explanation, but that's it. It's really not as complicated as it sounds. It just looks into these locations and pulls the data and applies them to whatever objects. I hope you find this useful if you're a modder, and I'll see you guys